Welcome to the Guerrilla Film Guide Podcast Roundtable Edition. This episode was recorded during the One Story, One Community celebration presented by Borland River Media and the Utah Film Center and is titled Anybody Want a Short Film? Finding Your Audience and Life After Post. The panel was moderated by Bryan Fugal with guests Max and Lucy Nebeker and Eduardo Ayres Soares. We hope you enjoy.
All right, thanks everybody. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to be moderating for you. My name is Bryan Fugal. I am a filmmaker here in Utah, like the rest of the people that we're going to be talking to today. Let me take this off of watching the live stream so I don't get thrown off by that. All right, so where do we start? Yeah, like I don't know what we do by way of introductions, but my films in here are Long Haul and Lumeria. I produced Lumeria and I was a writer-director for Long Haul. Who we have here as well, we have the Nebeker twins, Max and Lucy. Yeah, there they are. They're waving at you. They have a film in here called Angler. And then we have Eduardo Ayres, who is whose film is Chasing the Dragon, right? Yeah,
and Metamorphosis.
What's that?
And Metamorphosis.
And a Metamorphosis, yes, of course. And then we're hoping that J.D. Allen also joins us to talk about his film, Dear Lord. So I'm excited to be talking to all of you guys. I've seen your films, and I've met some of you before. Some of you, like the Nebeker twins, I'm meeting for the first time, and I'm just blown away with the quality of your work. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about everything. But specifically, this panel is talking about finding your audience, and then also, a little bit of life after post-production, which we're going to interpret that, which means distribution and audience building, and then just what's coming up next. Okay. So actually I'm going to give you guys a moment to I introduced you guys a little bit, but you could probably introduce yourselves and know yourselves a little bit better than I do. And some of the stuff you have coming up, and just tell us a little bit about yourself. We'll start with you, Eduardo.
Me? Okay, so just a little bit about myself, you mean? Okay, so I'm living now in LA. I'm working as an editor here. I'm doing focus on other projects at the moment, right? I think it's pretty much that. I was teaching before here in California. Last year, I was teaching game story, right? Storytelling. It was pretty interesting. Right now, I'm working on my first feature film. That's going to be a documentary. It's just like in the early stages. We are just putting the concept together and gathering information. It's going to be a documentary. Have other small projects also that I want to put forward, but it's basically that for now.
Cool. And I will mention that your Utah connection is you went to University of Utah, right? You did a master's there?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I had a master's, Master in Fine Arts, MFA in Film Production, University of Utah. Mm-hmm. I was living Utah for 4 years. No, let me see, 3 years. Yeah, for the last 3 years. Right, where I met these wonderful filmmakers, Michael, Bryan, everybody.
Cool. Awesome, thank you. Max, Lucy, I guess you guys could take it one at a time. I'll let you guys decide who goes first.
I'll go first. So Lucy and I, we finished school not too long ago. I finished up at the University of Utah. I was studying in their EAE program, which was like the video game development program there, but ended up getting my degree in film and media arts. So a lot of film stuff, but I also did most of my things in video game development. But Lucy finished school. I'm sure she'll tell you about that. And we decided that we wanted to get together, and we'd always had really big passion for film our whole lives and done some filmmaking stuff in high school, although it was amateur. And we decided that we wanted to start making films. And so we wrote a feature-length film just to sort of start, and then realized that we couldn't get straight into that without a little momentum. So we've been working on something that we're calling the Rocky Mountain Mythology Trilogy, which is a trilogy of shorts that are all kind of, all the stories are kind of like mythological tales that happen in the Rocky Mountain area. And so we've been working on those. We've had 2. The Angler is the second, and we're getting ready to do the 3rd. I'll let Lucy say some more, fill in gaps.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I love that. I mean, I've had similar ideas just being a Utah boy myself, just like there's so much rich storytelling that goes on in other places with mythology and stuff like that. Why isn't there anything like that here? And so I love that you guys are doing that. Lucy.
Yeah, well, I think myths are a great, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I think that myths are a way to show the spirit of a community, and Max and I care a lot about the region and are just looking to sort of help create a new filmic voice at a time where I think Utah and the Rocky Mountain states are seeing a lot of expansion and an expansion in the arts as well. So our final film we're filming in 2 months, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that when we screen The Angler. And just as we kind of get into longer talks about distribution and audience building.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Are you guys originally from Utah?
Yeah.
We are.
I'm from Brazil.
Yeah, Eduardo's from Brazil. I know that. What part of Brazil, Eduardo?
I'm from the south, close to Argentina, like in the last state in Brazil.
Is that Santa Catarina? Which one is that?
Rio Grande do Sul.
Rio Grande do Sul. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the Nebekers, what part of Utah are you from?
Salt Lake.
Salt Lake area?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let me jump into some of these questions. Okay, so when it comes to audience building, you all kind of bring your own, well, let's talk about this. What do you guys do to set yourselves apart as filmmakers? That's kind of the question I want to ask you guys. For each one of you, I have a kind of a follow-up or an addition to that. I saw that, Lucy, you have a degree in cognitive neuroscience with a minor in film. And I was wondering, I mean, I've seen Angler. I can see how that might play into some of the visuals, some of the rich visuals that you have in that film. But I was wondering how you're able to apply that to film to make kind of make your films unique, and what the collaboration between you and Max has brought to your films to make them unique and set yourself apart as filmmakers.
Sure. I mean, I think everyone who's a filmmaker here knows that there are so many levels and so many aspects of art making that go into the film, from the writing to the visuals to the editing, are maybe like the 3 big ones, right? So I think it's good. Max and I like to start with the philosophy, so we try to start with sort of like, what is the significance of what we're making and what is the root of it? And so for us, like we said before, that's really trying to develop a voice through a new genre, which we're calling Rocky Mountain Mythology. So sort of kind of doing like a magical realism sort of take on stories and archetypes throughout the Rocky Mountain West. And we really care about that because we think it kind of brings a sense of community. And so we start with the philosophy. And every film has another philosophy. You know, it could be greed. And we decide, what are the visual elements of greed? What is like the archetypes we're going to use? And I think we really break it down in a systematic way. I think being a visual neuroscientist, I like systematizing these things works very well for me. I think I care a lot about how neuroscience and perceptual studies sort of combine how we receive sort of visual inputs, but also how our mind understands them and fits them into sort of orders. And I think using that to sort of help describe, I think like human cognition in a film is helpful. And that's a lot of how I think when I'm putting together a film visually.
When I saw,
that made any sense.
Yeah, it does. When I saw cognitive neuroscience, I couldn't help but to think of Clockwork Orange, when they're like pinning his eyes open and like making him watch things. Like, kind of explain a little bit what that is, and it's probably not what I imagined.
Sure. I mean, obviously, cognitive neuroscience just kind of means that I'm looking a bit more. I mean, it just means neuroscience, but I'm focused on perception, and we have the most information about visual perception.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sort of how we take in signals, which could be signals of light for visual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how those are first going through our eyes and connect to our brains, and then how our brain orders them to make sense of them and then relay them back to us. Describing that, I just lost my train of thought, but
No, that's good.
that is what it is. That is what I studied. So it's about the tension between the outputs and then or the inputs, right? The visual stimuli, and then how we as humans interpret that and output that into the world is
That's
how I
amazing.
would describe it. So it's a combination of hard science, anatomy and physics, and combined with psychology and theoretical stuff, because we really just don't know that much about the brain. So we actually, I'm gonna leave it
That's
at
fine.
that.
No, that's good. All right, Max, what do you have to add to that, Max?
Wow. I mean, yeah, in terms of like the process, totally, we really do think about like exactly how we want the audience to be feeling at any given moment in our, in the, whatever it is in the narrative. We actually go through and like graph out, like a graph of like intensity, emotional intensity, and make sure that our script is like matching that exactly. And then once we get down to like shot listing things, we really want to make sure that what's going on the screen is hitting those emotional points. And then when it comes down to like the cognitive, like, you know, neuroscience stuff, I mean, that's more about like, that's like the editing and, you know, what we're seeing and how we're interpreting the images. So something like the angler, we can get a lot into that with like, I don't know, with, I guess it's applied through like angles, like what angles are you doing at? So like with the angler, it's all about fish and things. So we did a lot of bird's eye view stuff, make it look like you're looking down on the main character the whole time, something like that.
Okay.
And obviously it comes through in color and things like that as well.
Okay. So one follow-up, because I want to jump in and get Eduardo's answer too. But just to kind of finish up your guys' collaborative, what makes you guys unique? What do you feel like is the best thing that comes out of working together on these films? I mean, you are twins too, so there's got to be like that wavelength too, right? That you guys have grown up with each other all the time, and maybe there's that shorthand, and maybe that even some like invisible communication that they talk about the twins have, you know. Like, tell me how all of this, your collaboration, really kind of helps to make your stuff unique.
Yeah, I think that we both have just like a different way of thinking about narrative stuff, which comes into like the writing process a bit. But then I think that throughout the whole process, Lucy and I have very like we can, I don't know, it's stupid to say, but we complete each other's, like, where she may lack in something, not that she lacks in very many areas, and where I might be better, not that I'm better at her than many things. We often pick up each other's slack very, very easily and fluidly. I always feel like we're on like the same page in terms of like what the goal is, and then we just need to help each other, take the steps to get there. And I think like as of now, we haven't had any issues, and the sets run super efficiently. And we can get things done really quickly as well.
And I guess more like on a philosophical level, I think like Max and I bring like the feminine and the masculine experience. I think like we're both trying to be receptive of that. And I think it's like a shared sensitivity. And I think just growing up so close and being in the womb together and going to school all these years together, I think individuality is a bit expanded to be sort of a party of two. I think that it helps bring empathy and understanding of like what audiences want, like what groups want, and not just what you as an individual wants. It kind of allows us to be like, no, the idea is too kind of pretentious, or like you're only going to care about that because it's all about your life. Like, let's make it about something that the audience cares about. And I think that helps us make films that are less selfish, I guess, less purely individually oriented. I think that is what the twin angle is. It's being more communal.
Have you seen people respond to that and kind of mention that in any way in what you've shown them? Any kind of feedback that you have that's helped you kind of like validate that, I guess?
Just good feedback, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think I think our scripts are just a combination. I think they're an unexpected combination of sometimes maybe like more horror or more masculine elements and more female elements that lend themselves to sort of a unique voice. So I think that we've definitely been told we have a unique voice.
Good.
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. I mean,
we're still early on.
Yeah, you got to stand up from the crowd in some way. And it looks like you guys are doing a pretty good job of doing that, especially visually. So Eduardo, I want to talk to you about kind of the same question. What do you do to set yourself apart as a filmmaker? I know we've established you're from Brazil, so you have the international approach. And I'll let you talk a little bit about, because I know you have the LGBTQ, or as they say, queer cinema angle on your approach to cinema. So talk a little bit about that, and anything else that I might be missing that you think contributes to your unique voice.
Okay, well, thank you. First, I think you folks did such a great job to talk about your film. Like, I was like, oh my God, like, do I need to top that off? You know? Yeah. I really would like to watch your film, guys. So about my film and about finding my voice, right? So I have been thinking a lot about that during my 3 years at University of Utah, right? What kind of filmmaker I want to be, what kind of films I want to tell. And I think this is a process of not just one film, but you are doing that throughout your career. I was watching an interview with Denis Villeneuve. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's directing Dune, and he was talking about how was his process, right? And one thing that he said that really caught my attention, that's something that I really need to apply to my work, is that he said that in his first and early days of filmmaking, he was trying to see how a film and a project could benefit his career. And that was a big issue. And he started to be more successful when actually he was trying to find ways for him as a filmmaker to be there for the story. Right. And so at the moment, that's something I'm trying to focus more, you know, and how can I as a filmmaker help this story that's important to be told, you know, to go out and reach a greater audience. Right. So this is something that I keep in my mind. Like in finding my voice, I'm very much interested in underrepresented communities and stories, right? Especially LGBT and especially transgender stories, right? I think this is something that's going to be a signature of my work, you know, to always have a hint of transgenderness. And I have one of those, let me see. One filmmaker, one director that really inspired me is Almodovar. Right, he had done All About My Mother, The Skin I Live In. Another one is Bertolucci, and I forgot the other one. Now I forgot the name. You know, so all these directors, they have like hints of queerness on them in their works, you know, and this is something I would like to approach.
Awesome. So what are some of one thing I want to get into when it comes to building your audience? Okay, you have your unique voice, and then you got to find an audience that connects with that, right? So what are some of we'll start with you, Eduardo. What are some of the tools that you implement, whether it's self-promotion, websites, like what are the things that you utilize to help get your message out there, to help get your film out there and build your audience?
So social media was a big part of it. Right. So I did a website. The website, it's important because for me, when you get people through social media, you need to send them somewhere. Right. And the website was the place where I all send them. Right. In the website, you're going to have my crowdfunding. You're going to have how many awards we got. We're going to have synopsis. You're going to have everything about your film there. Right. But one big element in Chasing the Dragon was Instagram. And so through Instagram, we reach around 3,000 people just through Instagram, right? And we have an excellent feedback from these people. And we have a bad actually feedback for some people, you know, especially from the transgender community that was questioning if having a law enforcement character transgender will be something good, because law enforcement are kind of opposite of the LGBT community in some people's mind, right? They are very much into the transgender character, but they are criticizing why law enforcement, because law enforcement actually kill transgender people, right? But I think it was a wonderful critique, and going in the comments, you know, and actually talking about that, many of those people, I think the great majority say, oh, okay, I understand now why you were going for it.
Yeah.
And so for me, social media was really, really important to reach a bigger audience and to have a contact with the LGBT community, right? I also tracked many YouTube filmmakers, you know, that has produce some sort of queer content or law enforcement content, and I contact them directly, you know, and I told them about the story, and we have a great feedback. Also, there is one trans girl. She is Sanja. I forgot her name, Sanji or something. She has thousands of people that follow her, and she actually said that she will be in the movie. She said, like, I really want to be in the movie, please, you know, I want to have one role here. And she was considering actually flying to Utah to be in the movie, right? Just because I connect these people. So I think to reach, of course, we are talking about before distribution, you're familiar already, right? And so was the Instagram, was the social media, was reaching people directly, you know, and many times when I was sending emails, I actually read I read a little bit about this person, right? And then I wrote the first paragraph. I was like, I know your work from this and this, you know, I have seen what you produce, and Jason the Drago is related to your work based on that. And then I start talking about how, what we need, and especially what I want of this person. You are not just going to contact them just to contact you. You need to say, hey, I need your help with financing, or I need your help to bring this to a bigger audience. Right. Another thing that you could do also is, if you have IMDb Pro, you can contact filmmakers through that, right? And then you explain your story. I think approach to email for me was pretty good. You know, it was pretty good. Right, you just need to be careful when you start sending messages to not be flagged as a spam, because it happened a couple of times on Instagram when I was sending messages, you know, because you send many messages a day, right? And I learned that when actually I was doing the crowdfunding through Seed and Spark. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job. And you actually brought up another thing that I think is worth mentioning. The audience building doesn't come after it's edited. You know, the name of this panel might suggest that you maybe start worrying about that afterwards. But with packaging and getting people involved early on that are passionate about your message, you know, and that already have a following, right? If you're building an audience and you're starting from zero, you need to find people that already have an audience that can bring their audience to your films, and then their audience then becomes yours as well. So I think that's a great point.
Just adding something to that. So even before filming, I was, when I went to some film festivals, for example, Landon's on Park City, in one of the parties, I was actually already pitching to people, right? And so people knew that I had a project, and that this project will be realized, will be materialized, you know. And so when I start doing the crowdfunding, many of these people already know, I know Eduardo, I know he's doing that. And some people even donate money that I was not expecting at all. You know, with the crowdfunding. But I think talk about your film, show your passion is really important. People love to hear people that are passionate about things.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And one thing I've learned, at least, is that nobody's ever going to be as passionate about your film as you are. So as much as you want to get everybody on board and on the same level of passion as you are, they're always going to be a little bit less. So if you're not way up here, you can't expect anybody to be up there either. So let's turn over Nebeker twins. Same question.
Well, Eduardo already did such a great job talking about social media and film festivals. So let's skip over that for the time being. I think as filmmakers right now, we have a unique opportunity to we live in this age of the internet, or like the age of the niche or however you say it, where there's so many platforms where so many specific groups of people come together to share their passions and their interests. And so I think as independent filmmakers, to sort of find success in a way that isn't like a shot in the dark like where you hope you just strike, like Napoleon Dynamite, just, just happened to strike a chord. And and I think they didn't really have the internet to help them, because they could have totally found an audience for that, right? But like, I think they in a way kind of were an arrow in the dark, and they were successful. And that's honestly their success story is one success story in millions of failing stories. And I think us as filmmakers, we have a responsibility to actually be a little more business minded in how we approach audience bases. And I just want to tell the people who are filmmakers out there, like, I think you need to find a business plan and find a minimum viable audience that can actually make a living off of. I think all of us as artists want to have a career, making our art, and want people to watch that and want to resonate with people. And to do that, I think understanding who your audience really is, like, who are those people that are like weird like you in the exact same way, like, who are your weird people, and like, and really get specific, and that is going to really help you sort of know what, like Eduardo said, like, know what influencers to reach out to, know who the gatekeepers are, and really putting in that research early on, and really thinking about, like, is the budget of my film like equivalent to sort of like how many people are in my niche group, like, you can't make a $3 million movie unless you have an audience that's like at least 2 million people, right? So I just think that was never stressed for me in business school. I had to find that out, and I think like that's really critical. I don't know. I feel very passionately about that. We have to educate ourselves as filmmakers about our audiences.
We want people to see them.
Right, having a marketing mind to things, and the business and marketing side of things. They say it's film business, so half of it's the film, the art, the other half is the business. Max?
Right. And I just want to add, like, specifically for us, like what we're trying to do with the films that we're making is we're kind of we're trying to like develop a brand, right? And then like stick kind of to that brand, which is like this Rocky Mountain, like we said before, Rocky Mountain mythology thing. So we've written like 2 features now, and then we're working on our 3rd short. And those features are also kind of like the same genre, the same kind of like obviously same location, because it's all in like the Rockies. And that works for us because we can kind of just snowball it, right? So like we made 1 short, and like what was the audience is like 0. It was like our family, like, like our parents, right? And like, and then you have to take that, and then you have to use that to grow your audience. So then you extend your network, like all your family and their friends, and then like, and maybe even some of their friends, right? And then use that to sort of whatever we did like fundraising through that way. And then you also have to just employ everything that's around. So we were also part of like the Utah Artist Foundry. And so that was like a huge tool, for like people to know about our things, because like all our colleagues, all our peers are there, and those are the people who are going to watch your things. So you got to make sure they know about it, right? So you show up and you talk about your things there, and then you just continue you have to roll that snowball down the hill. And then right now we're preparing to do a crowdfunding thing. We're doing all the research that Eduardo was talking about. We're using Seed and Spark actually. And they're really helpful with like letting you know how to do like good outreach to like everybody. And so like we're preparing that, but because we've already had these 2 other films that we made, we have like that dedicated base, I guess you would call it, right? The people we know are probably going to show up and donate day 1. And the real goal is to not make shorts forever, right? And like crowdfund everything. So we're hoping that like it just continually is just like kind of proof of action and concept just for your next thing to be better and bigger, I guess. And then because it's that way, it'll reach a bigger audience, hopefully.
I'm glad you talked about community, local community, because that was one of my questions. And so I'm gonna let Eduardo also talk a little bit about that. So my question written down here says, what role does local community of filmmakers and actors play in building your audiences? You see a lot of these films that come out of Utah. You see a lot of common actors. You see a lot of common people involved in all of them. And it seems like it's kind of a tight-knit community of a base that you could just build off of just starting there. Did you find that to be true, Eduardo? Oh, yeah, and your microphone's muted.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I understood the question. You were saying the role of the community in the movie?
Yeah.
That's the question?
What role does the community, whether it be local community, like almost shot here in Utah and the time you were here in Utah, or the, you know, the other communities that you were able to find, maybe starting with local that built out to more of a national community, you know, that are in line with what your brand is. Like what did those play? What role did they play in building your audience?
Okay, yeah. I think the local community was so important in Chasing the Dragon. You know, not just in the realization, right? And when you were filming this, because all the connections that we got, when the word started spreading out, like that's how, through the community, that I find the main actress, Natalie Day, you know, that actually is going to be in the Q&A tomorrow with me for after Chasing the Dragon, right? And all the crew also we get through the community. So the support was really good. I'm not gonna lie, now that I live in Los Angeles, I really miss the Utah film community because people are so connected. You know, I feel people are very connected. It seems like a small community, but people really produce. People are really constant on their work, and I think people support each other, you know, through the community. And I think I really miss the Utah community. I had a good time there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That was part of the question, I guess, right?
No, that was the question. I just was enjoying your answer, and I didn't think of what the next question was going to be. You both talked about kind of getting feedback. So in terms of like feedback versus creating your own brand and also staying true to your unique voice, that's kind of a juggling act, right? A balancing act that we have to, like for example, in my film, I was just going to make my film however I wanted to make it because it's the message I needed to say, you know. It's not a good long-term goal, but it was just like what I needed to say at the moment. And then it found some audience, but if we're being more business-minded and we want to make sure that we're getting the biggest audience possible, we need to kind of take into account as well what the audience wants from your work as well as just what you want. So my question to you guys is, how do you balance what you want and what the audience wants to see from your work when it comes to getting your feedback? Like, how do you manage that? Let's start with the twins.
Am I muted? I'm
Oh,
not.
you're
Okay,
good.
I was gonna say, I think there's like a statistical saying that's called the wisdom of the crowd, and basically that means, you know, like the mean answer of like a group of people, like a big sampling of people, is going to be correct or weirdly accurate if it's like someone that they're all guessing like a height, size, or anything. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, Max and I take people's advice when we hear it again and again and again. I think it's like the more people you can show your movies to, the more feedback you can get. You start noticing, like, people say, like, weirdly, like, you notice people like notice the exact same thing and they'll all point it out to you. And that's really the advice that I take as like a director. And then I guess there's people that you really, really trust, right? And I think making changes is either based off that, or like if someone tells you something and you're like, you know what, I have felt that way too. Like I had a hunch about that and you really explained that to me in a way that makes sense. And I'll change it.
And I think a good way to just reconcile that, like, you know, the tension between like what like audience wants and what you want, like how to expect that. I think again, it's just being well researched before you get in. Like you can have your idea of your film, but like if you research about it before you even get into it, then what you want to do kind of stems from the same place as what people may want to see later on, if you know what I mean. Like those before you get into like the nitty gritty directorial like you know, decisions that you really want to have happen, you can make those when you're starting from a place that was informed by what people might like to see as well, right? So if you want your film to be well received, then that might be a good approach.
Eduardo.
I don't think I have anything to add. They said it.
Yeah. No, I think what Lucy, going off of what you were talking about, I think that kind of like helps to discover the commonality between all humanity, I think, you know, and filmmaking is always like the human expression and like human experience, right? So if you get a lot of people saying the same thing, then I think that's a really good place to, you should pay attention to those things. Whether you agree with
Sorry, go on, Brian. Sorry.
No, that's what I was going to say. Whether you agree with it or not, then it's worth considering and testing. As uncomfortable for artists as it is, and I've seen this. I'm like, don't criticize my work, but it's hard to put your baby out there and let the world criticize it, right? But it ends up being one of the most valuable things you can do.
Yeah. Like just talking a little about the feedback. So I do the same thing with the script and with the rough cut, right? With the cuts that we are doing after the editing. And like what I do is just one thing that I do with that is I don't send to everyone at once. I have some people that I know I trust. I know are filmmakers where I send a rough cut and they give me feedback. I have other group of people that I send when it's more refined, and I have a last group of people that I send when the cut is done, is almost done, right? And what I look actually is for patterns, right? Oh, they are saying, well, I really don't understand that, but also they understand what they think of the story, right? And ask them like, what do you understand of this short film? What's the message you are getting? And then and when people start telling you the story back to you, you say, okay, you didn't get the story. So I need to work back on the editing, right? And so there was one point also when it might happen that you send the film to people and the feedback, there is no pattern. Everyone is saying a different thing. This happens sometimes because you want two kinds of feedback, I believe. One is the feedback as an audience, right? Is the story clear? And sometimes people give you the feedback as a director. Like they're gonna look at your film, if I was a director, I would do this way. And this sometimes can be helpful, but many times it's not, because the person is not a director. My style is there. What I need to know is not you as a director telling me what you think about the film, but you as an audience, right? In many points, it's good to have a different perspective from a director perspective, but I believe that in the editing, the most important thing is as an audience. So I send to people that are directors for a specific kind of feedback, and I send to people that are not filmmakers at all. When I was sending Chains in the Dragon, I sent to a bunch of filmmakers, and each one say, oh, delete this scene. And then the other person said, no, don't delete this scene. This scene is amazing. But when I sent to people that are not filmmakers, like the feedback was so different, and it was so like people really got through because it was very fast. Some of the filmmakers think it was too fast, but for the audience, that is short span, right? Some people, right? They really like the pace because they could watch from beginning to end. It was very easy to understand, and so, yeah. So at the same time, I think you plan how to get this feedback. You need to learn how to filter the feedback also, right, so you don't destroy something good that's right there.
So if I'm understanding correctly, I'm going to just repeat it back to you. And the way I understand it, to summarize, you have different, not all feedback is equal, right? Yeah. You have to really kind of, and you're talking about kind of different circles of trust, right? Your inner circle of trust is going to understand what a rough cut looks like, and they're not going to be like, oh, the sound doesn't sound very good in this, It's like, there's different people for different stages of filmmaking with different qualifications that you're looking for specific feedback. And I think that's really important to point out. So yeah, thanks for going into that. I wanted to also talk to you guys. I want to talk to you guys. We don't have, let's see, looks like we have about 20 more minutes. This is kind of flying by, but it's been a great conversation. I really enjoy everybody's feedback and conversations and contributions. I want to talk a little bit about the importance of a body of work. One of the things I learned early on was that, writers write, directors direct, actors act, right? If you say you do something, prove it, right? And even if it starts with something small, like what we're doing with short films, and then most people that make short films, they want to be making a feature film, right? But before you can make a feature film, you got to prove that you have prove your style, prove your brand, whatever it is you need to prove. So I just want you guys to talk about how each project has helped you build your audience and how you've been able to use the previous project to facilitate making the next one. Start with Eduardo.
How each project helped me build the audience. I think people around you know what kind of films you were, what kind of stories you want to tell, and they kind of expect that from you. but this isn't all the filmmaker world. I have one of my friends, she worked at Sundance. She has a film at Sundance. She has an Emmy too. And she was telling me that, let me see if I quote correctly, that on Sundance, they have lists of filmmakers that they track where they are going, right? And so when they accept someone in Sundance, they are actually already knowing about this person, you know, because they want to put the career forward, right? And I think this is part of building the audience. You know, building the audience is also about building a brand, building a visual identity for yourself. You know, how you present yourself to the world. Right? I think this is it's really important.
Yeah. So Nabekers, what do you guys think about that? I see you guys have already talked a little bit about how you're doing a trilogy. You have a very specific look and style to your website. How is this been the plan all along? I assume it has, but I'll let you guys kind of speak to that and how building your body of work helps you to propel your career and your goals in filmmaking.
Yeah, I spoke to it a little bit earlier, just how like keeping that snowball kind of rolling, not only just for like your audience, but also for your own, development as an artist or in whatever capacity for us, it's directing and writing. And so, just like anything, the more you do it, the more you learn about it, the more you figure out, shortcuts or, better ways of doing something. And I think that that's definitely been the case for us. But yeah, in terms of like the body of work, we had kind of like this idea of what we wanted. We figure we'll be like for a decent amount of years, we'd like to be making films just in this kind of Rocky Mountain mythology universe, I guess you'd call it. I don't know how interconnected the like actual narrative universe is, but kind of just, and they're all connected just through, and even within like the trilogy, it's a trilogy, but it's not like through story between them. They're all just kind of like different. It's about where they are and kind of like how the structure, like the mythical structure of them, and more so than like a single story. And so we're just trying to build kind of like a storybook of stories that could happen, or could be told in this specific area. And that's how we're kind of trying to build it. I don't know, Lucy. I don't want to say like too much because I want Lucy to be able to talk too. So, Lucy, go for it. You're muted.
Well, thanks. I think this maybe is a good panel because I think Max and I are very early in our career. We literally started making films last year, like last March when we made our first film ever, our first short film. And I think shorts can be a great tool to learning relatively cheaply, and you're allowed to fail, you're allowed to experiment.
The stakes aren't super high yet.
Yeah, I think, and also you're allowed to kind of understand like what kind of audience you actually want to target in a way before sort of moving on to a bigger feature. So I think if you're a filmmaker just starting out, it's so important to do shorts. Max and I really wanted to skip the shorts and go to making the features, but I think I'm glad we didn't. It would have been a complete disaster. And also I think we learned about our voice a lot more, and we learned about who as an audience is attracted to us and what we can do to make our feature more appealing and really resonate with them and leave them with a meaningful experience. And so I'm excited to hope theoretically test this in the future,
and that's the key word right there, is testing.
Yeah.
Like I work in marketing. I help, for the last year I've been making Harmon Brothers commercials, right? And the marketing model is to, especially on social media, make a lot of small things, throw them out there in social media, see what tests well, and then whatever messaging tests well, you take those pieces and you make the bigger commercial, right? So we essentially can be doing the same thing with our short films, is finding out what messaging is resonating with the audiences in the kind of projects that you like to be working on, and then saying, okay, I can make that my identity, my brand, and make my bigger projects based off of something I've tested and know there is an audience for. So that's great. Eduardo, anything you want to add to that?
Well, actually not about that, but like I really like the commercials you did. Man, that's so funny. Like the for the Harlem Brothers. This is really good. I was really impressed. I need to say that was really like I watched it a couple of times because it was very funny.
I was going to claim more creative credit, but yeah, thank you. Okay, so you talked about having kind of a storybook of mythology for the twins, and for Eduardo, you kind of want to live in this niche of LGBTQ filmmaking, especially with transgender topics. What is the ultimate long-term goal? Where do you see yourself in 30, 40 years as you just can't physically make films anymore? Well, that's maybe for me. For you guys, it's probably like 50 years or so, or 60 maybe. Go ahead, Eduardo.
Yeah. Well, so I spent 3 years in Utah. I was doing films here. I was doing my MFA. And so now I think the next step for me was moving to Los Angeles. It was really important for me to be here because everything happens here, right? And so this is my first year here, and I had the feeling that very little was happening, but actually a lot happened since I got here. You know, I met a bunch of people. I have been working on a TV series and a TV show, right, as the editor. Being here for me was so important to have not just connection with people, but to learn how things work, right? Here, there is so many events of filmmakers where you can go and you can meet people, right? I heard stories of people that after going to an event, they just meet someone that has money but doesn't have much creative input, you know, not creative input, but
Ability.
are not directors, and then they just do a partnership and they got a producer that sponsor all their films.
Yeah.
Right, which is not so uncommon. Like for me, when I was here in LA, is when I went to a filmmaker, woman's filmmaker party. Like I was with my friend, and she took us there, and then I just met another guy there, and he taught me about Rewrite. And so what happens is Chase the Dragon got distribution and a streaming service, right? A queer content and streaming service. Right, that's how it happens. Right. Another meeting I went, I got another distribution that is Filmocracy, right? So Chase the Dragon got 2 distributions just because of that.
Awesome.
And so, yeah. And so you just meet people. So for me, the next step after right now is having a body of content, like having many works where I can pitch, you know, having pitch decks, have projects that I can go to people and say, hey, I need funding for this, you know, because I have, for example, since I got here, I have at least one call with executive producer of NBC Universal, right? And that was really nice. I have with him, and I have another meeting with a producer. And I'm never gonna forget. So I was meeting this producer in a coffee shop because I just sent an email to him. Right, I found him on IMDb Pro, and the guy do shows in Israel. He does shows everywhere, right? And he has a film through Sony. And so when I went to sit down with him and we start talking, he asked me, okay, tell me about your projects. And I told 1 or 2 projects. And one thing that he told me, okay, you need to have a lot of projects. You know, when people ask you about a project and you say, oh, I have this, and the person doesn't like, then you need to go to the next one.
They're gonna say, what else?
Yeah, what else you got? You know, so you need to have plethora. You need to have so many options, you know, and I would say even in different genres, right? I have documentary, but I start pitching to him the documentary, say, oh, I don't do documentary, but you have a fiction, you know, and then you need to have fiction, right? And you give options to him because this is a unique opportunity. Maybe that person is gonna hire you as a director, and if not as a director, or something else, right? So having options is pretty important. So how I see myself in 30 years, I cannot answer that, but I can answer in 5 or 10 years, right? I hope I have at least in the next 5 years have pitched a lot of projects, you know, and get this experience to know how to get into the pitching room of Netflix or NBC, you know how to do that, have this experience. And in the next 10 years, I hope to have at least a couple of projects receive funding from a major studio, or not maybe major studio would be too much, but you know, have the independent financing that can lead me at least into a big film festival where I can do more connections that I will already be doing.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy and Max. What does life look like beyond the storybook? And Lucy, you're muted, by the way.
Lucy, you go first this time. I'm going first every time.
All right. Can you ask me that question? Sorry, again. Just are we trying to phrase this through like a distribution lens, or?
Well, no, I'm just saying like long-term goals as filmmakers.
All right.
You said you've been in it for about a year. It seems like you have a few years out when it comes to the storybook of mythology. Just out of sheer curiosity, not necessarily as much for the audience building or the distribution side of things, but where would you guys like to see yourselves in 20, 30 years as filmmakers?
In a year, we would like to have made our first feature film, regardless of the budget of that film. I think we're ready to move on to making features. I think we feel ready. I think we would like to sort of see this genre through for the next 10 years, and really try to like fine tune our voice and build a community in Utah that's very strong, but also sort of have ties to New York, which is where I'm based when COVID isn't happening. And and then I think in 10 years after, we kind of want to go into sci-fi, actually.
I would love to like
or
get a lot
people.
of, and I would like to go back to, not go all the way back to games, but like I said, I all my college training was like for video game development. And I really love the film. It's a little bit, you can kind of get into it a little bit more, into like the indie world a little easier. It has its benefits that I think I like. But if and when we get like a lot of momentum, hopefully a couple of like features or something out, I think it'd be awesome to make a game, do like the direction for a game. Yeah, I know Lucy's expressed a little bit of interest of like maybe doing that, and maybe doing something like within the kind of world that we've made. I don't know.
Well, I think we hope to expand like our voice to other
different
art
media. Yeah.
Max and I are pretty multimedia, just in general. I'm also a painter, so we're interested in pushing sort of our vision and our voices in kind of other interesting creative ways, even in like VR ways. I think we're interested in the future of media and what that means, and we're really excited by it. So we don't necessarily, I'm a film purist, but Max has helped push me more away from that and more towards the potential of video games and the audiences you can reach and the stories you can tell. Yeah, so I think that's kind of what we're interested in.
Cool. With the time we have left, we haven't talked a lot about distribution specifically in the questions, but you guys have mentioned some of it. I would like to just hear what you have already in place. Eduardo, you said you have a couple distributors for your film, and just give people an idea of what that looks like, because even just going through this process for my own film, I realize there's a difference between exclusive deals and non-exclusive deals. There's difference between regions. Like, you can really kind of piece your distribution deals up by region, by how much of the film it is, whether it's exclusive or not, and really kind of make money back even on a short film. It's rare to make your money back on a short film, but it is possible to get some money for your short film by different ways of distributing it. So will you kind of talk to us about the kind of deals that distribution deals that you have in place for your films, and then plans for any additional distribution outlets?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that because I'm not a producer, but I can tell you a little bit, right, what I have learned. So when I was talking in the talks with Rewrite, the queer streaming service, they wanted a 3-year deal with exclusive rights to be streamed. And I didn't want that, right? Because I wanted to stream that on Filmocracy and other platforms, right? Because basically this, I don't know if my money is gonna come back,
yeah,
right? What they're gonna pay me for the movie is what they tell me how much people have watched that, right? And so I asked them to change the contract, for something that was non-exclusive. But like if it was exclusive, my film will be considered, I believe, rewrite original content. And I think it's the same thing that happens with Netflix. Like when you see Netflix original content, it doesn't mean that Netflix actually has pay someone to do the film. It just means that Netflix bought that, especially on overseas and international, right? You see that a lot. You see many shows that are Netflix original, but actually Netflix just bought the film, right? They didn't pay for the production. They pay after it was done.
After they prove that, oh, it's actually good. Okay, I guess I'll pay for that. They have no risk in developing something that maybe isn't.
Yeah. The people just sold the movie, Netflix bought it, now it's considered original, and that's how it happened, right? And so for me, looking at the contract was really important, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to promote and streaming other places, right? I know that there's many other options. There's options, for example, in YouTube. In YouTube, they have like Alter, they have Dust, I believe it's Dust. They have Omeletto. They have some channels there that are your film. If your film got accepted, they're gonna put your film online, right, on YouTube, and you can get like 500,000 views. Right. There's other ones that Short of the Week. The Short of the Week is a festival, but it's on Vimeo and on YouTube. And those places could be nice. This is a different kind of approach, right? That you can use. Some filmmakers don't like that, because your name in the film is going to be just in the end credits and name in the description of the video, right? And people, okay, I'm just giving they're not going to give you any money. Right. But then you can say in a circle of friends that your film got like 200,000 views, So it depends. Like, I think you need to see, you need to how to say, be perceptive of what your film needs and what you need for your career, and if this distribution service works. Some people put all the movies on Amazon, and people on Amazon who has Amazon Prime can access that, or you can buy it. Right. So this is another option. Right. There is Vimeo on demand, where you can place your film there and you can sell your film there for a certain price. It just depends. Like the only one I have done so far is through streaming services, where you need to have a subscription. Right. This is the first ones I'm trying, but it depends. For example, if it's a sci-fi, I might try to put this on YouTube channels. Right. If it is a comedy or a romance, I might put this on Amazon Prime so people can buy it. Right. So people on Amazon, but I'm not a producer. I'm not like a super expert in that. So
I think the key is to decide first what your end goal is for your short film. If your goal is to get more eyeballs on it, then you might not want to sign an exclusive deal for some streaming service that most people probably haven't heard of, right? So it might be best for you to put it on Amazon Prime or YouTube and put it out that way if your goal is to get more people to see it, because that could translate into building your audience, which is what we're talking about right now, right? And Twins, go ahead, tell us what your plans are for that.
So yeah, right, like we said a couple times, like we're just getting started in this. So actually right now, our first two shorts, so we're kind of using our shorts as like stepping stones for the next ones, mostly. And then we're also just putting them through festival circuits. Although we're kind of debating right now what we want to do with our the second film. We don't know, especially with like how the sort of scene is looking, like the festival scene is looking for the rest of the year, is a little bit like we don't know how much good it's going to do to go through all that. Whereas we could just be making it public and using it to like, get more, like you were saying, get more eyes on our stuff. Just because there's so much restriction when you're like trying to put your films through festivals, right? That you can't like make it publicly available. But right now, that's what we're doing. We're putting our films through festivals.
Okay. Anything else, Lucy?
Nope.
All right. Well, I think that's about it for the time that we have. It's been a really great conversation talking to you guys. Thanks for everything that you've contributed. I hope anybody watching has really learned a lot from you guys, and also maybe you have some new fans after this. So go watch Chasing the Dragon by Eduardo Soares, and go watch Angler by Max and Lucy Nebeker. give us all a quick shout out real quick. What time are those screening, if they haven't already?
Ours is tomorrow at like 3:30, I think. No, 1. It's at 1. Today was at 3:30. It's around 1, I think.
Yeah, mine, Chase the Dragon is the last film in the festival. And I think Metamorphosis is on 3:40 something on Block E. So
We're Block F.
Metamorphosis-
I just looked it up. Sorry.
Okay, I think mine is one block before.
It is.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
It was great to meet you, Eduardo.
Yeah, nice
Great to meet you guys.
I can't wait to see your film.